back again for another day, and got something on my mind I want to talk about. Injuries. So here's the thing. First thing that popped in my mind was, can we trust Joe Burrow? Can we trust Joe Burrow to just stay healthy for one season? And not only that, can we trust Joe Burrow to stay healthy for one season, but also can he make it to the playoffs? Because we got guys who are at least making it to the playoffs when they're healthy. That's what they're kind of sort of averaging. Justin Herbert. But they still get criticized for not winning a playoff game when it's still pretty much semi early on in their career. And history has shown that there has been quarterbacks that it has taken much longer than others to win a playoff game, have success in the playoffs, even win a Super Bowl later on in their career. I can't remember the last time Matthew Stafford won a playoff. I don't think Matthew Stafford has ever won a playoff game prior to him going to the Rams. And you can fact check me on that. I'm not saying that's a fact, but to my knowledge, I don't think he's ever won one in Detroit. I will look into that. But even if he did, we know he did not have a successful playoff career prior to LA. The thing about it is that I'm tired of hearing these takes about Joe Burrow being a top 5, and if Joe Burrow is healthy, they're automatically going. But they're not, though. They don't. So where is that lie coming from? And then they blame it on the defense. But whose fault is it that the defense is not good? I mean, you're paying receivers. You got like the most expensive receiver duo in the entire league. Joe Burrow wanted that. So if Joe Burrow wanted that, evidently it's not the defense. It's his fault. The reason why his defense is trash, and I think we're kind of sort of putting too much blame also on the offensive line, because Joe Burrow, he stresses the offense a lot to get bigger throws, to get deeper throws down the field. A lot of the times he's taking those sacks. Those are him. That's his fault. That's not his offensive line fault. He's stressing the offensive line to keep holding it down for him to make a decision to stress the ball, to force to push the ball down the field. Don't get me wrong. Like I like Joe Burrow. I think he's a great quarterback. I think he's phenomenal. I just think he gets too much praise than what he deserves. Like some quarterbacks, I think, like Josh Allen, and even Matthew Stafford, I think they kind of get way too much praise than what they deserve. And then you got the media and other fans and analysts who's pushing these guys to be like, maybe when it's all said and done, top 5 of all time. And I think it's just wow. And Burrow, who hasn't even won, and for one, Allen, who hasn't even played in the Super Bowl. But I just think it's completely unfair for somebody like Herbert, who has actually had way worse situations than any of the quarterbacks in the league, and he gets the worst criticism because he just hasn't won a playoff game. And people push it like it's his fault. The reason why he hasn't won a playoff game yet, because if you actually watch these games, you will see that Herbert he played the past 2 games that he's played, the past 2 playoff games that he's played, he has played top defenses with a bottom-ranked top 30th offensive line in the league. What quarterback in NFL history has ever done that? Has ever had that situation and been successful? But the analyst doesn't mention that. They don't talk about that. So-called people like Emmanuel Acho, who tries to claim like he knows so much about the game, he doesn't talk about that. It's simple. Like it's simple to even like acknowledge that a quarterback with a bottom-ranked offensive line, not even a bottom-ranked offensive line, but also a bottom-ranked running game, which is a quarterback's best friend, a great running game, in a offensive line that you can't do anything with. And I don't care how talented a quarterback you are. Name me a quarterback that had a terrible offensive line and actually was really successful in the playoffs. And I mean a terrible, terrible offensive line. Not the type of offensive line that people like to talk about with Joe Burrow. Like, oh, he had a bottom rate offensive line. Yeah, sometimes he's getting hit is his fault. Like we already established that. So I'm talking about a just terrible offensive line and a terrible running game. Because Joe Burrow, he actually had a pretty good running game until his running back left. So, and a really great offensive caller, his head coach is a pretty good offensive caller, and he calls plays for that bad offensive line. Got disconnected, and I got disconnected, and I just think it's just completely unfair. And so I just wanted to see, can we trust Joe Burrow? We trust Joe Burrow. And nobody is saying it, so I'm going to say it. Will ever see the Super Bowl. Well, I should will ever see the Super Bowl. Well, I shouldn't say ever. Never say never. I'm not going to say never or ever. But I don't think Joe Burrow will see the Super Bowl again. I'm not going to say ever. I'm not going to say never. I just don't think he will. I believe his chances of that has ended. And let's lose our imagination. What would Joe Burrow look like without Jamar Chase? What would he look like? What would he look like without T. Higgins? Is this why he was stressing the Bengals to keep them, so we can keep the narrative that Joe Burrow is tearing it up in the league, but with one of the most talented wide receivers of all time, Jamar Chase, and one of the greatest duos of all time, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins? Yes, they are. What would he look like without them? So Joe Burrow needs to push the narrative. The Bengals had this before. Carson Palmer with Chad Johnson, TJ Houshmandzadeh. They had this before. So, I mean, I'm really looking forward to this season, and I'm telling you all right now, if the Bengals don't make it, there is going to be excuses for why they didn't make it. There's going to be excuses for Joe Burrow, and it's getting to the point now where it's getting just completely disrespectful, not only for my boy Justin Herbert, but I think more people can agree with me on this, is that Patrick Mahomes is getting taken a hit. And we're talking about a guy who's been to 3 Super Bowls in a row, won 2 in a row, and really the only quarterback that he's really had problems with in the Super Bowl was Tom Brady. I guess you could say Jalen Hurts has sort of outperformed him a little bit, but in the Super Bowls, but Patrick Mahomes was a little bit on the worser side of the stick when they came to who Patrick Mahomes was facing as opposed to Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts was pretty much doing what he was supposed to have done. He performed with elite talent. So I think Jalen Hurts, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, he outperformed Patrick Mahomes. He really, if you look at the costs, if you look at the obstacles, the struggles of what each quarterback was facing, did he really outperform Patrick Mahomes? He's had kind of Mahomes. Yeah, Jalen Hurts was dealing with Steve Spagnuolo. I understand that. But you're dealing with Steve Spagnuolo with A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Saquon Barkley in the lead offensive line. This isn't Bill Belichick we're talking about. I mean, that type of elite offensive talent, you should be able to deal with any kind of defensive coach. So I'm not going to give him that much credit. No, I'm not. And so really, he really didn't outperform Patrick Mahomes, because again, I keep trying to tell you all, you have to look into, when you're rating these quarterbacks and you're rating these players, look at what they're dealing with and what they're working to overcome. That's basic economics. I mean, the study of economics is the study of scarcity. So minimal resources. So somebody who could really make something out of nothing, that person is way more useful than an individual who's already had all the resources and then they're like, oh, look what I can do. Me personally, I just trust the individual who has shown me that they can really make gold out of scraps, as opposed to somebody who just simply just compounded what they were already given. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not saying the person who has given the resources, who was in nepotism, who had the opportunities for nepotism and everything. I'm not knocking them for that. You gotta make. I mean, you still gotta do your work. You still gotta do stuff. But what I'm basically saying is that a person like who's came from nothing and didn't make that out of something, that me, because I'm like, what you could make with that, So it to me is that Patrick Mahomes, he has done a lot with very little, and that's why I think Patrick Mahomes is still top two, and for me, that's why I say Justin Herbert is the best, because he has been in the worst situation than any quarterbacks, and he's made more from it. And with Justin Herbert, you can also say that he had elite defenses the past 2 years, but he also, again, he had terrible offenses. And when he had pretty good offense, like a subpar offense, he's had terrible defenses. And I think there's a stat out there that says that Justin Herbert, he's put up one of the most highest numbers, points, in his first few seasons than any quarterback, I think. And also, but his defense gave up the most points than any defense in his first few seasons, something like that. So he's always had like serious problems to deal with that really helps a quarterback to win games. So, and win playoff games. And it doesn't hurt that he's faced top elite defenses in the playoffs. The Texans, the Patriots, and I can't remember how elite the Jaguars defense was there. I'm pretty sure. So that's all I got right now. I'll be back very soon. I thank you all so much for watching. Please like, comment, share, subscribe. No days off. NDO. Deuces.